this countdown, we have the Barrier Canyon pictographs. Located in the southwest, the Barrier Canyon is a remote area in Utah. There you will find amazing pictographs that date back to thousands of years ago. Here's the thing, people are like, bro, those pictures look an awful lot like aliens. Most of the figures displayed there are quite odd. They are around 8 feet tall and shaped like a human, but have no arms, legs, ears, or noses. They do, however, have big alien-like eyes. Some have been drawn with free-floating eyes, or wings, or with serpents around their hands or above their heads. Other paintings are of animals and humans, but the humans aren't drawn nearly as big as the 8-foot tall weird creatures. The paintings are said to have been done by mixing blood and clay and possibly urine as a binder. Upon analyzing them, they found hair from a paintbrush that dates back to 6750 BCE, meaning maybe people back then were in contact with these humanoid alien type creatures. I mean, they would have had to had a big impact on their life in order for them to have been painted. Moving on at number 9, we have the rock paintings. For years, archaeologists in Sharma, India have been baffled by these weird ancient rock paintings. The paintings are around 10,000 years old and they look like they depict aliens and UFOs. Archaeologist Junior Back said, and I quote, "The findings suggest that humans in prehistoric times may have seen or imagined beings from other planets." Some of the paintings show these weird alien-shaped figures with massive heads, whereas other drawings are of what appears to be UFO spaceships. In other pictures, these weird humanoid figures are wearing what appears to be spacesuits. In fact, locals in the village would worship the paintings and tell great stories about small people coming down from the sky in round-shaped flying objects, abducting people, and then never returning. So, were the prehistoric people just super creative, or were they actually greeted by these aliens? Moving on to number 8, we have Saint Wolfgang and the Devil. This painting was created in the 15th century by famous German Renaissance painter Michael Pacher. It was painted based on the legend about Saint Wolfgang tricking the devil into building a church. So yes, that green guy with the weird face on his ass is supposed to be the devil. But people are like, really? That's an alien. I mean, yes, I admit that this creature doesn't look like a traditional devil, but over the years the devil has been depicted in a number of different forms, including something like this. But no, a number of people strongly believe that it's not the devil he was in contact with, but it was aliens instead, and apparently aliens have faces on their bums. Moving on at number 7, we have the Crucifixion of Jesus. Okay, this one is wild. Buckle your seatbelts. So take a look at this painting from 1350. It was created by an unknown artist for the Decani Monastery. The artist signed his name Serge, but there's no historical records of anyone with such name. So right off the bat, people are like, okay, so who created this piece? Especially because in the top right and left hand corners of the piece there are 2 UFOs with passengers inside. In the right corner, the pilot in the UFO seems to be looking all the way back at the craft behind him. Now I don't know about you, but no normal human being can do that with their neck unless they're an alien or an owl. On top of it all, this work would have had to been approved on the detail or else the whole piece would have been repainted. So someone saw this and was like, yep, that's accurate, looks good, meaning aliens were present during Jesus' crucifixion? Also, they didn't have spacecrafts back then, or any flying things. But those 2 people are certainly flying in something, alright? So what's the deal? Well, one explanation is that those 2 UFO things are supposed to represent the sun and the moon, or 2 divine beings watching over. But a lot of people are just like, no, they're aliens. In our 6th spot today we have the Madonna. Painted in the late 1400s, this is a beautiful painting of the Madonna with infant Jesus and St. John. But if you look in the background, there appears to be a weird spacecraft floating in the sky. In fact, it is emitting beams of light, and the man in the back with the dog is looking up at it with his mouth open like, what the heck is this? Like he's in awe of it. Even the dog is looking up at it like, what the hell is going on here? This craft looks a lot like a UFO. I mean, come on, there's even light rays coming out of it, so what else could it be? Again, people argue saying that maybe it's an angel or some sort of holy entity looking down on her. But there's no wings or a body of an angel, and this wasn't the typical way to portray angels, so it seems quite odd and out of place to say the least. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with Leonardo da Vinci's paintings. A lot of people think that Leonardo da Vinci was in contact with aliens and was trying to tell us through hiding secret messages in his paintings. First off, people thought that Leo was way ahead of his time. Like, he was drawing pictures of helicopters in 1493 before it was even a thing. He also talked about ships that could travel underwater, submarines. Like, he came up with a lot of modern day inventions somehow back then. So people were like, okay, he's either a time traveler or an alien, or he's in contact with aliens and they were telling him how to advance society. Now, here comes the freaky part. Someone mirrored and lightened his painting of St. John the Baptist, and it appears as if there's an alien face in there. It is truly quite freaky. It straight up looks like an alien from The Predator or something. Then you have his famous work of art, the Mona Lisa. Turns out if you do the exact same thing to this painting, you also see an alien's face. So, what do you think? Was Leo subtly trying to tell us something? If so, why would he make it so hard for us to find? Also, I want to know who went around like mirroring and lightening these images. Like, were they purposely looking for a coded message? Should we be doing that to all paintings or what? Moving on, at number 4 we have the glorification of the Eucharist. This is another religious painting that might include signs of alien life. So in this painting from the 17th century we see God and Jesus looking out over God's kingdom. But what's weird is that there is this weird round object between the two with antennas sticking out of it. It looks a lot like Russia's Sputnik satellite. Now, the sphere is the creation globe, like to represent Earth and the cosmos. But people argue that if that was so, then how come there's no stars? And how come it looks like it has almost a metallic reflection? And what about the antennas, okay? Some say that it's magic wands, but it can't be because they look like they retract, like antennas. I don't know about this one, okay? There's two theories. One, aliens provided them with such a device, or two, someone is a time traveler. I don't even know anymore. Coming in at number 3, we have No Chiri. This illustration is part of a UFO legend from the 1800s. The fact that back then they had stories talking about spacecrafts and extraterrestrials makes it seem like aliens are indeed real. This Japanese story talked about a sailor finding a weird floating craft in the ocean, which is what this picture depicts. According to the story, the craft was an object made from steel and glass, and was big enough to fit a small human inside. On top of that, they said inside of the craft was a small script that they couldn't decipher. Probably because it was like in an alien language, I don't know. But anyways, what are the odds that this story perfectly describes UFOs and drew them just like we picture them nowadays? In our second spot, we have the Paleolithic rock painting. This for sure is a painting of a UFO spaceship, and no one can tell me differently. Like, there's no way this isn't. Like, come on, as a kid, that's how I drew UFOs. What else is it meant to be if it's not an alien spacecraft? Anyways, this painting was found deep inside of a cave in Neo, France. It's dated back to 13,000 BC, which is insane because obviously they didn't have any flying devices back then, so what is this a picture of? Maybe they really did come across a UFO. And in our number 1 spot today we have Dracula's UFO. Not gonna lie, this is another really freaking weird one. This is a 16th century painting of Dracula's castle, like the real life Dracula, aka Vlad the Impaler. Well, hovering right above the castle in the sky is what looks like a UFO spacecraft. Not only that, but in 2014 a tourist photographed a very similar UFO right above a building in the same area. Could it be that Vlad was actually an alien? Like, what if aliens need to feed off of humans to stay alive, and that's why Vlad did what he did? Because in reality, he was an alien, not a vampire. I don't know, man, this is all too weird. Starting off this countdown, we have the Stagecoach painting. So this painting has a very dark and twisted backstory, so no wonder it's cursed. So in 1994, a photographer named James Kidd took a bunch of photos of stagecoaches in Tombstone, Arizona. However, upon developing the photos, he realized he captured a ghost of a headless man. And then a painter thought it would be a good idea to recreate this photo as an oil painting. So she painted this headless ghost man, and the ghost attached itself to the painting. Like seriously, what did she expect? So when the painting was complete, it was hung at a business. But a couple of days later, the business demanded that she take it back. Apparently, the painting was found crooked every morning, despite them constantly fixing it. They also blamed the painting for paperwork going missing and appointments getting messed up. The painting was just bringing them bad luck. So the painter brought it back to her home and she started experiencing bad luck. Her garage roof started leaking, but roofers couldn't find the source of the leak. And when the painting was moved, the leak stopped. That's what you get for painting a photo of a ghost.
Wow, what a creepy painting. Let's move on to number 9 with the Pyramid of Skulls. Before I go any further, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up because it really helps us out. So the Pyramid of Skulls is just as it sounds. It's a painting of a bunch of skulls on top of each other. It was completed by painter Paul Cézanne. Now here's where it gets creepy. As Paul started getting older, he became fascinated by death. So from 1898 up until his death, all he would paint are these creepy paintings filled with skulls. This particular piece apparently emphasizes the fact that you need to confront death and reflect on it. Not only that, but his genre of painting is called memento mori, which translates into remember that you have to die. So if that isn't creepy, then I don't know what is.
Moving on to number 8, we have the Raft of Medusa. The Raft of Medusa was created by Theodore Géricault back in 1819. The painting depicts the real-life shipwreck of the French naval frigate Méduse. On July 5th, 1816, 147 men set sail on this raft. Only 15 managed to survive. But those that did survive turned to cannibalism after being severely starved. Just knowing that backstory makes the painting way darker than it already is. Back to you, Brie.
Alright, and at number 7, we have the Japanese girl drawing. This is another painting with a very dark backstory. So legend goes that a Japanese student was found dead in her room. This was the last image that she had drawn before taking her own life. In fact, she scanned this image and posted it online for everyone to see. But legend goes if you stare into this girl's eyes too long, then she will get you to take your own life as well. Some who have stared at it for a while have claimed that the portrait turns evil. The girl gets an evil-looking smirk on her face and dark circles appear under her eyes. If that's what evil looks like, then I guess I'm evil because I look like that in the morning.
Making our way down the list of number 6, we have the Mona Lisa. Now I know what you're thinking. Lindsay, how is this painting scary? Well, it's not. But its backstory certainly is. So there's this famous urban legend surrounding the Mona Lisa. Apparently, a French artist took his life because he was driven mad by the mystery of the Mona Lisa's smile. French artist's name was Luc Mapereau. On June 23rd, 1852, he threw himself from the 4th floor of his Paris hotel. Later, a note was found in his room that read, and I quote, "For years, I have grappled desperately with Mona Lisa's smile. I prefer to die." Sadly, that's all we know about this case and Luke. It was featured in a 1999 Smithsonian article and in a book from 1966. It's a pretty creepy case, and now I will never be able to look at the Mona Lisa the same.
Coming in at number 5, we have the Weeping Children. The Weeping Children are a collection of paintings created by a man named Giovanni Bragolin. Every painting features a little boy or girl crying. Now it's said whoever owns these paintings will face tragedy. So in this case, all of Giovanni's paintings are cursed. In fact, a string of house fires were all thought to have been caused by this painting. All of the houses that caught on fire were completely destroyed except for the paintings that remained perfectly undamaged. Take the case of Roy and May Hall. This couple owned one of these paintings. Their house unexpectedly caught fire and they almost lost everything, except for the painting of a crying boy that wasn't even blackened by smoke.
Yeah, I've heard of those paintings before. It's super freaking creepy. Okay, and at number 4, we have Zdzisław Bakaski. Look, I know I said his name wrong. Okay, I know I butchered it. Just move on from it. Now, this dude has created a number of creepy looking paintings, but the scariest one is this one right here. It features this weird creature crawling with a bloody wrap on its head. Honestly, it really creeps me out. To make matters worse, apparently this painting is cursed, and if you see it 3 different times, then you'll die. Yeah, so we all just saw the image once, 2 more times and bye-bye. Okay, I mean, there's no proof that this legend is real, but still, I never want to see that painting in my life ever again.
I agree, I never want to see that painting again. Okay, moving on to number 3, we have the collage of art balls. Here is another painting that can kill. So this painting is associated with a Japanese urban legend. Legend goes that if you look at this painting 5 times, then you will die. A little death note, but whatever. I mean, hey, at least it's 5 times and not 3 like the other painting Lindsay mentioned. Besides that, not a lot of people know much about this painting. It was painted in 2010, but we don't know by whom. And we don't know why it's cursed either. I mean, it's just a painting of a ball.
And at number 2, we have Watson and the Shark. This painting is a depiction of a real-life tragedy. It was created by John Singleton Copley in 1778. Basically, back in 1749 in Havana, Cuba, a visitor on the royal consort was the victim of a brutal shark attack. He lost his leg in the attack and was badly injured, but thankfully, he was rescued. This painting depicts just that, which is very dark.
And finally, in at number 1, we have Man Proposes, God Disposes. This painting was created by Edwin Landseer in 1864. It depicts Sir John Franklin's ill-fated expedition in 1845. This painting is how Edwin imagined their fate would be. But little did he know that he created an extremely cursed painting. So this painting is hung up in the exam hall at the Royal Holloway University of London. Rumor has it that in the 1970s, a student took his own life after staring at the painting while taking his exam. All he left behind was a note on his exam paper that read, "The polar bears made me do it."
Starting off this countdown, we have the Fairy Feller's Master Stroke. The Fairy Feller's Master Stroke is Richard Dadd's most famous Baroque painting. It's quite beautiful at first glance with all the flowers and intricate details. But turns out that Richard painted this while incarcerated in a state criminal lunatic asylum. In 1843, he suffered a psychotic episode which ended in him brutally killing his father with a razor and 5-inch knife. He then proceeded to hide the body and flee to France. But while fleeing, he tried to kill a fellow coach passenger and was arrested and brought back to England. And then he was locked away after telling authorities he was instructed to kill his dad by the Egyptian god Osiris. Moving on at number 9, we have the Charnel House. This is a piece created by none other than Pablo Picasso. It was first exhibited in 1946 and it is a very abstract piece. Well, turns out that the piece actually depicts a Spanish family that had been killed in their own kitchen. Picasso saw footage of this in a black and white documentary and was left shocked, to say the least. If you look at this piece, the lack of color is intended to symbolize the feeling of witnessing such violence on film. The longer and closer you stare at this image, the more you can interpret it. You can see the kitchen counter with the dishes up above, while a number of bodies lay on the floor below. That's what makes this painting very unsettling. At first you're like, whoa, what is this that I'm looking at? And then you're given the gruesome backstory, and then all of a sudden the abstract shapes form images. In our 8th spot, we have the cross-country killer drawing. This next piece of artwork features a cloaked figure holding a set of scales, while a 2-headed dragon casually chills below it. I'll leave it up to you for interpretation. Now, this cartoonish piece of work was actually created by Glenn Edward Rogers, otherwise known as the cross-country killer or the Casanova killer. He's an American serial killer that was convicted of 2 murders, but suspected of many more. In fact, he admitted to killing 70 people, but later he was like, nah, I'm just playing, I didn't kill that many people. So we really don't know his true kill count. Fun fact, if you want to buy this piece of work, you can. It's currently on sale for $200. Literally just because of who drew it. I don't know about you, but I do not want my home decorated by pieces made by serial killers. No thank you. Moving on at number 7, we have Christina's World. This piece of art was created in 1948 by Andrew Wyeth and features a young girl laying on the grass staring at a big home in the distance. Now, there's nothing necessarily sad or dark about this painting, right? Well, wrong. This painting is of Christina Olsen, a neighbor of Andrew, who was sadly unable to walk. As a young girl, she developed a degenerative muscle condition, possibly polio, but it was never diagnosed. This left her unable to walk, but she refused to use a wheelchair. Instead, she would crawl everywhere. This painting reflects the struggles she encounters on a daily basis. For example, her being so far from her home might symbolize how disconnected she feels with her abled family. It also highlights how it would be hard for her to travel great distances, as she would have to drag her body across that field to get home. With all this in mind, it really changes how you see this painting. At least it did for me. Moving on to number 6, we have Bernardo de Galvez, aka one of the most haunted paintings in the world. This is a portrait of Bernardo de Galvez, a very powerful Spanish military leader. In the early 1900s, the city of Galveston opened a hotel named after him, and in the hotel, they hung this massive portrait of him. Shortly after, spooky things began to happen, and people realized that Bernardo has attached himself to his portrait. A lot of guests have seen his ghost wandering the halls by his portrait. Others complained about feeling very unsettled while passing the painting. Others say that the area around the painting is always very cold. The creepiest thing is that if you try to take a photo of the portrait, it will end up coming out blurry or just completely dark. Your photos will continue to turn out blurry unless you ask Bernardo if it's okay to take a photo of him. Once you get his permission, then you can take a picture of the portrait and it should come out clear. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the approaching storm. This painting is quite unique due to the fact that the top of the canvas is actually carved out, giving it kind of a 3D look. The painting has been named the Small Pine and Barn with Approaching Storm painting. It's a very original title. Now, what's the big deal about this painting, you ask? Well, it was created by serial killer Jeremy Jones. Jeremy claimed to have taken the lives of 21 women in 5 different states over the course of 12 years. He was finally caught in 2004 after he killed his neighbor and set her home on fire. And this is another painting that you can purchase if you want art done by a gruesome killer in your home. If you do, it's yours for $625. Moving on to number 4, we have Frida Kahlo. Frida Kahlo was a Mexican painter most famous for her self-portraits featuring her iconic monobrow. But what many people don't know is that she had a very tragic life. At 6 years old, she contracted polio that affected her right leg. As she got older, she developed a permanent limp. Then as a teen, she was injured in a terrible bus accident, during which one of the bus's iron handrails impaled her through her pelvis. As a result, she was unable to have children. A number of her paintings highlight her tragedies, including the Broken Column painting. This painting depicts how she felt after that bus accident. It features Frida with a metal rod in place of her spine. Not only that, but you might notice that in a number of her paintings, she's surrounded by monkeys. While monkeys were her favorite animal, and in her paintings, they represent the children that she was never able to have. Now, how depressing is that? In our 3rd spot, we have Black Triptychs. Black Triptychs are a series of 3 paintings created by Francis Bacon between 1972 to 1974. They feature a series of blurry abstract men. These paintings were actually inspired by Bacon's lover's death. George Dyer was Bacon's muse and lover. Sadly, he took his own life and Bacon fell into a dark hole. These paintings show views from the moments before, during, and after Dyer's death. After his death, Bacon painted him obsessively, often showcasing how distraught he was by his death. So what you're looking at in this painting is literally a death scene, painted by a heartbroken and traumatized artist. In our 2nd spot, we have The Lovers. With a name like The Lovers, maybe you're expecting a cute, brightly colored painting featuring 2 happy people in love. Well, not even close, I'm sorry. This is a painting completed by René Magritte and features a couple kissing with white sheets over their faces. In fact, these paintings were inspired by her mother, who took her life when René was only 13. Her mother jumped into a river and drowned herself. René saw her get pulled out of the water and noticed that her mother's nightgown had slipped over her face, covering it. This traumatizing image of her dead mother inspired this piece of work. For years, she was haunted by this image of her mother. Now, how dark and depressing is that one? It just keeps getting worse and worse, guys. And in our number 1 spot today, we have The Severed Heads. And just like the painting's name suggests, it features 2 severed heads. Now, this piece was painted by artist Theodore Géricault. who is known for his dark and scary paintings. It features a woman's recently decapitated head next to a man's decaying head. Clearly, he's been dead for more time than her. Now, here's what makes this painting even more messed up. Theodore was so obsessed with death that apparently he kept real dismembered body parts and cadavers in his studio. So the heads we see in the painting were real heads he had in his studio that he drew. He obtained the male's head after it had been chopped off by a guillotine. How great is that?